Hello everyone and welcome back to Crime Rush. I'm Inga and thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope you're all doing well and that you are mentally prepared for today's video because it is shocking. We are going to be talking about a very disturbed woman from the UK and her name is Virginia McCullough.
Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy.
Yeah, that's Virginia McCullough. But before we dive in any further, please note that this content is intended for mature audiences only and that I get all my information from public sources. You can very easily do your own research and form your own opinions. Virginia McCullough was born in 1989 and she had 4 older sisters. Her parents were John McCullough and Lois McCullough. John was a retired business studies lecturer who had worked at Anglia Ruskin University, and Lois, I'm not actually sure what she did for a living, perhaps she was a housewife, I'm not sure, but the family lived in a village in Essex called Great Baddow. Reportedly, John and Lois were good parents in the sense that their children always had a roof over their heads and they always had everything that they needed in life. But John and Lois weren't exactly known for being affectionate. In fact, they were known to be quite cold towards the kids and hardly ever showed them any affection. Now, this is what I read, and some of these claims are coming from Virginia herself, so I don't know if we want to believe that. I'm not sure if it's true, but that's what I read. Now, Lois also was struggling with agoraphobia, which is a phobia where you don't want to be in public spaces, you don't really want to leave the house. And her and John were not people who liked to socialize. They kept to themselves and they sort of isolated themselves along with their children. But it also sounds like John and Lois were even struggling to show affection towards each other because the children have said that they had separate bedrooms since they could remember, so they weren't even sleeping in the same bed. Virginia has claimed that Lois, her mom, was someone who drained the happiness out of her life. She said her mom was just always angry and that both of her parents used corporal punishment to keep them in line. In fact, Virginia claims that her parents abused her. And in a nutshell, Virginia just didn't really have anything nice to say about her parents, to be honest. She said they were unkind people. Now, there's not much that we know about what happened in Virginia's life through her childhood and teenage years or anything like that. But what we do know is that her 4 sisters eventually grew up and they moved out of the house, as you do. But Virginia never seemed to follow that same path. Virginia actually stayed with her parents. She never moved out. So she was almost like a failure to launch child, and it was almost like she had no idea what to do with her life. She hardly worked, and if she got a job, she always lost them and made some crazy excuses of why she couldn't keep a job. She had no ambition, she had no goals, she isolated herself and didn't want to socialize with anyone. So she must have been a very lonely individual, but then again, she chose that lifestyle for herself. Virginia's sisters have also said that Virginia lied about anything and everything, and they believed that she was a compulsive liar. So in 2018, when Virginia was 29 years old, she was still living with her parents, John and Lois, in a 3-story home that was attached to another home where another family lived. John and Lois were getting on in years now. They were already in their 70s, and John had many medical issues. He had diabetes, he had high cholesterol, and he also had high blood pressure. Lois had her own set of medical issues. She still struggled with agoraphobia and she had extreme anxiety at times. And I would say that Virginia used this as the perfect excuse for her life because she would say that this was why she was still living with her parents, because they were sick and she had to care for them. But in actual fact, Virginia was using her parents because she still had no job, she was still living with them, she wasn't paying any rent, and worst of all, she was stealing money from them. Virginia would lie to her parents all the time about everything. She even told them that she had a job, and she would even get dressed in the mornings and pretend to go to work, but meanwhile she would just be sitting in her car and doing nothing or spending the money that she was stealing from her parents, which is so disgusting. And then she would just come up with various excuses of why she lost this job or she got fired from that job because they were unfair towards her. I mean, she just lied about everything. Meanwhile, she just didn't have a job at all. But as her parents became older and all of this new modern stuff started coming in, like online banking, Virginia sat down with her parents and she actually convinced them to allow her to manage their finances. Now you can only imagine where this is going. Because Virginia wasn't managing anything actually. She was just stealing more and more money from her parents. She would even lie to her parents and tell them that she had various diseases. At one point, she even lied and told them that she was pregnant. And then a few months later, she said she had a miscarriage. I mean, this woman is really nutty. And her lies just continued, and she kept on committing fraud, and her parents stayed oblivious to this because remember, Virginia was supposed to be in charge of their finances. But then Virginia started pushing her luck a little bit because she became addicted to online gambling and started taking out loans. And no, she wasn't taking out loans in her own name. She was doing it in her parents' names. But then at one point, her parents actually do become suspicious and they start noticing that something wasn't quite right with their finances, and they started questioning Virginia about this. But of course, she comes up with an excuse, and she actually tells her parents that they were victims of online hackers, that hackers had actually gained access to their bank account and stolen a large amount of money. And she went through great lengths to make it all seem legit. She even created fake police reports. She even phoned her parents pretending to be the police. And now you can just imagine this massive web of lies that Virginia is caught up in. And Virginia knew that it would only be a matter of time for all of her lies to come crashing down on her, because at this point she had stolen tens of thousands of pounds from her parents and she wasn't paying anything back. So she was trying to figure out a way out of this dilemma. And what she comes up with is so cruel and so insane, you will not believe it. In March of 2019, Virginia started preparing for her evil plan. She started collecting her parents' medication, and she also went and bought everything that she thought she would need to her own mom and dad. On the 17th of June 2019, Virginia took a lot of her parents' medication and crushed it up and slipped it into their drinks. Her dad, John, drank his entire drink and he went to bed. Her mom, Lois, though, only had a little bit of her soft drink, which had the medication in, and then she went to bed. Virginia actually helped each of them to their separate bedrooms and said goodnight to them. The next morning, on the 18th of June, Virginia woke up a bit earlier than usual and immediately went to check on her father. Sadly, her evil plan worked and John had passed away. But when she went to check on her mom, Lois, she realized that she was still very much alive. However, Lois was completely out of it because she still had a lot of meds in her system, just not enough to pass away, So instead of having second thoughts at this point, Virginia actually decided that she had to finish the job. So she took a hammer and she struck her mom on the head with it. Still clinging to life though, Lois turned and looked at her daughter and asked her, "What are you doing?" Virginia then took a knife and stabbed her mom a total of 8 times. When her mom still was alive after this, Virginia picked up the hammer once again and struck her mom with it repeatedly. She then apologized to her mom as she held her hand and watched her slip away slowly. That same day, Virginia started planning on how she was going to hide her parents' bodies. Now, this is absolutely insane. I wasn't expecting her to do this at all. So 2 days after she ended her parents' lives, she took their bodies and she placed each of them in a sleeping bag. She then dragged her dad's body to his study and she wrapped him up in plastic. She then took massive cement blocks and placed them on top of each other and built a sort of tomb around her father's body, which is crazy. She took her mom's body though and she dragged it upstairs and then she placed it in this massive wardrobe and just taped it closed. And after the Virginia just carried on with life. She ordered more credit cards in her parents' name. She did more shopping. I mean, she was just having a good old time. She was even texting her sisters from her parents' phones, pretending to be them, and she kept on making up excuses of why they couldn't come over to visit. She also made excuses to neighbors or anyone who would ask about John and Lois, about where they were. And she was also still collecting her parents' pension money. And I think because John and Lois kept to themselves so much, Virginia was actually able to get away with this for quite some time. The only thing that really baffles me is like the fact that the other sisters didn't come and just show up at the home eventually when the parents didn't answer. Because remember, this carried on for years. So the 4 sisters never saw her parents again. So I was just wondering, why didn't they just show up at the house? But perhaps they didn't have that sort of relationship with their parents. I'm not sure. And then, of course, 2020 came around, and what a crazy year that was for the entire world, because in that year, we faced a global pandemic and we had to all go into lockdown. But this was perfect for Virginia because this meant nobody would ask her where her parents were because everybody was staying home. And Virginia kept on like this for years and years and years. And mind you, she was staying in that house with her dead parents. That just freaks me out. I mean, who does that? She was trying to be careful and she was trying to get away with it because every now and then she would text the sisters and pretend to be her parents. And she would even contact John and Lois's doctor. And she would make appointments for John and Lois. But then a few days later, she'd phone and cancel the appointments. Virginia's mental state seemed to deteriorate over the years though, because she really started to do the strangest things. She made up another pregnancy, another miscarriage again. She even phoned the police to complain about her neighbors, saying they were making too much noise. And at one point, she even phoned the police and told them that she was attacked in her backyard. Now get this, the police actually showed up and came to question her and went inside of the home, not knowing that there were actually 2 dead bodies in that house. Now, part of me has to wonder, why would Virginia do that? If she really wanted to get away with everything, why would she have phoned the police and why would she allow them to even come inside the home? That's crazy. But I believe that a part of her wanted to get caught. I think she couldn't live with the guilt of what she had done. And this was almost like a cry for help. Or she could have been so cocky and so desperate for attention that this didn't scare her at all, or it gave her an adrenaline rush. You know, just a crazy ass person. And at one point, Virginia was even phoning the police daily. I mean, she was probably driving them insane, but nobody ever discovered her dark secret. That is until September 2023, when Lois and John's local doctor became concerned about them. He knew that they were phoning in and making appointments, but then they kept on cancelling their appointments. And at this point, he realized he had not seen John and Lois in over 4 years, and he was aware that both of them had medical issues. On 1 September of 2023, the doctor's office phoned the police and shared their concerns about John and Lois McCullough with them. The police phoned Virginia, and she told the police that her parents were on holiday, but they didn't have their phones with them, so it would be impossible to reach them. So on the 15th of September of 2023, When police still had not heard from John and Lois, they decided to get a warrant to search the house and just have a look at what happened here.
That's right. No one in here at the moment. Hold on. The police. Got it.
Stay where you are.
Stay where you are.
Show me.
Stay where you are. Show your hands. You here?
Jenny.
Yep.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Cool. The time is 12:12. You're under arrest on suspicion against Jonathan McCullough and Lois McCullough. Okay? You don't have to say anything, but in my home defence, you do not mention when questioned, social life support, anything to do so with the evidence. Okay? Alright, your arrest is necessary for a prompt and effective.
Is there anything in the property we should know about?
Yes, there
Where?
is. Can I take you to it?
No, you can tell me.
Can we go in there for a second, just so I can tell you something about what's in there?
Yeah.
And
Let's tell us
the only
something
reason
about
I
what's in
said
there.
I need to tell you something about what's upstairs on the top floor as well.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
My dad's body's in there.
Right, okay.
Yep, okay. Obviously I'll
What about
say,
your mum?
a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
That's why I said, can I go upstairs and show you?
Right, can you
If
explain
wanna
it to us,
bring
please? Because
officers,
we're trying to preserve this. It's now going to be seen, so we need to preserve this the best we can. So I don't want you to have you walking up there, all right? Because that's for your well-being as well as ours.
Oh, no, up.
Okay. So what?
Thank you.
Where
Can I grab some
will we
hairbands
find your
as
mum?
well, if possible?
Where will we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there are about 5 wardrobes.
Yep.
It's behind the bed at the back next to the sink. That's the second one. I've slipped a pile of those into his drink. There were about 2 or 3 drinks that I brought downstairs. And yeah, they were basically, he didn't drink all of them. He only drank probably about half of 2. But yeah, when I went in the morning, this was before my mother. When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Came in and he was gone. He was gone.
Okay.
It's I did know that this would kind of come eventually. It's proper that I serve my punishment. So yeah.
Okay, so Virginia, I'm just going to ask you this. This is what I've written down based on the information you just told us, because what we regard as a significant comment, because you've made
Right,
it
wanna help.
upon under caution
Those
after your
paintings,
arrest.
by the way, are part of they're my granddad's.
Okay, right. So I've written this, please. I, Virginia McCullough, have informed police constables 77329 Brown and 79387 Bowers after entering my house on Friday the 15th September 2023 that I murdered my father, John McCullough, who was stated was under a bed in the rear ground floor of the house, and my mother upstairs in a cupboard next to the sink.
Wardrobe. It's a double wardrobe.
Right, okay, I've written
Double
cupboard.
wardrobe. It's like 4 wardrobe doors, but it's the one nearest the sink. Double wardrobe.
Pick up then.
Yeah.
What's significant as I've written down there here now, I've just read out to you. Are you happy to sign that, to say that's a true account?
Yeah.
Cheer off, at least you caught the bad guy.
I've
I
just
know, I
woken
don't
up
seem-
today
I
and
don't-
done my
I don't
job.
like it.
No.
I know I don't seem
Not a lot,
100% evil, but we all, yeah,
I'm not going to comment on anything. It's not my job to comment on it, okay? Because I've got to be impartial with everything, okay? So I'm not going to give any comments.
No, well, I mean, I deserve to obviously get whatever's coming sentence-wise, because that's the right thing to do. And that might give me a bit of peace. Also in the handbag as well, there's, and again, because you're probably going to need to know about it, there's a card in there, card one money, and that's a bank card where there's a lot of transactions that have taken place over the last few years.
What?
From money that pertains to my parents. So, murder weapon is upstairs in the toilet room, kitchen knife. It's in the middle of the brown carpet, against the wall, opposite the shelves. So there are two long white shelves. So opposite where that wall is, that's where the knife is. So next bit is very hard to talk about. That's probably the most grisly detail. So on the ground floor, underneath the stairs, there's a few like storage boxes and things. In the middle, I think it's in one of the boxes or in a bag or something. If you want me to shush after this, it's fine. But every bit helps. You will find forensic bits helpful. There's a hammer. I know, but I'm trying to help so you find everything. It's in the middle, underneath the stairs. It will still have blood on it. It's rusted, but it will still have blood traces on it. So not cooperating is it's futile.
Yeah.
There's no point in not cooperating, there really isn't. And plus, apart from which anyway, I should pay for what I've done. That's the other side of the coin, I think. So, yeah.
Wow. You know, the part that really disturbs me the most is the part where she goes, cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy. In actual fact, the entire thing is disturbing because she is just so nonchalant about the whole thing. I mean, it's like she's just making a cup of tea. She's just talking about it like it's just a normal everyday thing. She is by far the strangest individual that I have come across in a true crime story in a long time. Virginia McCullough pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 36 years. In my opinion, I don't think that she should ever be released after what she did to her parents. And if they even consider releasing her one day, they need to do a thorough mental evaluation on this woman, because I believe that she will be a danger to the public. And I mean, they need to address her compulsive lying. She needs to get some sort of help or treatment for that, because I think that was a big part of why she did what she did. And if that's not fixed, they cannot release her. The judge actually said to Virginia, and I quote, "You think more of money than you do of humanity." And I absolutely agree with that. I'd like to extend my condolences to the family and loved ones of John and Lois McCullough. Even though Virginia hasn't had the nicest things to say about them, I find it difficult to believe anything she has to say. But even if all she said about them is true, they still did not deserve to lose their lives the way they did, and at the hands of their own daughter. May John and Lois rest in peace. So what did you think about this case? It's crazy, right? I mean, all of that for money? It's just so sad, and it was so unnecessary. I mean, greed will drive people to do the cruelest things in life. But thank you so much for tuning in for this video. I always appreciate your support so much, more than you will ever know. Please make sure to stay safe in this crazy world, and I will see you in the next one.